Welcome back to the Before the Bloom podcast. And today we are going to be talking about something that sounds simple, but it can change everything. Knowing when to say yes and knowing when to say no, whether it's in business or just in life itself. We've all been there agreeing to things that we don't have time for, or overcommitting at work, or taking on projects that drain us, or maybe it's the opposite, maybe saying no to opportunities because they feel scary or unfamiliar or inconvenient. But what if your yes and your no are actually your strongest business tools? And what if they shaped your success more than your talent or your contacts or even your strategy? So today we are diving into a couple of topics. So one is why we say yes too much. Two, the hidden power of saying no. Three, a framework of making better business decisions, well, and life decisions too. And then also real examples and questions to help you move forward. So let's start with the yes. Saying yes can feel exciting. It's so exciting and it can open doors and build relationships and lead to growth, new opportunities. And you never have any opportunities unless you say yes to things, right? So sometimes we say yes, though, to the wrong things. Sometimes we just want to be people pleasers. We just want to say yes for the sake of saying yes. We want to be liked, or we want to, we don't want to have FOMO. We do not want to miss out on something. So we say yes, even though deep down we may not feel exactly right. We just don't want to miss out. Or we feel pressure to prove ourselves. How often do you see people get into really ridiculous circumstances because they are trying to prove them, teenagers specifically, or, young adults, dudes specifically, where they will say yes to something just because they don't want to look like an idiot. Like in fraternities, they'll say yes to hazing, even though it's dangerous and can cause problems. They want to prove, we want to prove ourselves to somebody. Or possibly we are going to underestimate the time or the energy required to do something. And that's my biggest problem when it comes to saying yes. I say yes to everything. I'm like, oh, yes, of course, I could do that. I could do that. I could do that. But at the end of the day, I sometimes will say yes without really realizing the time commitment or what it's actually going to take. I've been accused of being delusionally optimistic in the past. But hey, like if I wasn't delusionally optimistic, I would have accomplished far fewer things than saying yes, thinking it was going to take a half a day. And in reality, it took 3 days. But you know what? Hey, we got a lot accomplished. Okay. So, and then one of the last reasons people say yes when they shouldn't is if they are uncomfortable or they're uncomfortable around setting boundaries for themselves. And so, like for instance, I have an assistant in my business and she is amazing. She's amazing. She's kind of a yes person, but that's kind of your job. If it's your job, you say yes to things because that's your job. But she would take saying yes to a whole nother level. And I just thought she was Superwoman, which she kind of is. But she would say yes to everything. And then when she had her second baby, she was like, I just can't do this anymore. I'm like, what? Why not? You're Superwoman. Well, it turns out that she was saying yes to everything and it was burning her out and she was taking on too much. And it was like jamming up her personal life and her family life because she was saying yes to me all the time. And so for her to recognize yes is a good thing, but it might hurt you in other ways is definitely something that we need to talk about here. And I've been guilty of that too. Yep, you say yes to everything because you want to be the hero, and then next thing you know, you're overburdened and overworked and stressed out and resentful, and none of those are a good thing to happen to you by saying yes. But if we don't say yes, we can lose out on opportunities. But when it comes to business, oftentimes the reason that we say yes is because we don't want to miss out on something. It's because we are coming from a scarcity mindset and we don't want to miss an opportunity. And so we say yes because we don't know when the next deal is going to be coming around the corner. We say yes because if we don't say yes to this, we might have nothing in the future. And I've been guilty of that in my real estate career, especially early on. Oh my gosh, I would say yes to everything. I would say yes to everything. And it was funny. My mentor called me one day and she's like, hey, I got a lead and it's, XYZ piece of property. And the seller is this type of personality. And she's like, frankly, I would not touch this deal with a 10-foot pole, but if it's something you'd like to take a stab at, go ahead. So of course, me being the yes woman that I am, said, oh, of course, bring it. I can handle anything. I can do anything. Yeah, bring it. Oh my gosh, let me tell you, that was a traumatic learning experience, to say the least, because that personality type was outrageously demanding and challenging, and it was just a difficult transaction on a whole nother level, to the point where I was like, I'm not sure real estate is for me because this is crazy. And then I didn't necessarily handle it the right way, and my broker was not happy with me, and the seller was not happy with me. My mentor was not happy with me because I was handling it all wrong. Well, I said yes, and then didn't know how to deal with it. And then it sank in later when my mentor would tell me, oh gosh, no, you don't have to say yes to everything. You can pass on that and then take on another deal that won't be so emotionally taxing or mentally taxing or time consuming for a very small payoff. But, and so we have to really think about why we are saying yes and when we're saying yes, and what does that mean for the rest of our whole lives, and everything else that's involved in our lives. So here's the truth that we often forget, is that every time we say yes to something, we are inherently saying no to something else. And it took me a minute before I finally realized what that really meant, because every time you say yes to a needy, high maintenance, mean, angry, disrespectful client, you're saying no to your sanity. You're saying no to your own mental health. You're saying no to your family members who are losing out on time with you and losing out on the good version of you because you have been spent by a negative client. And you're saying no to personal projects that you may not be able to get done because these clients require so much time of you. And obviously we should give time where we need to give time, but what is the quality of the projects that we're saying yes to, and is saying yes to them worth giving up what we are inadvertently saying no to by saying yes to these things? And so those are the things that we need to talk about. I've got so many examples in my life and career about saying yes to everything and how that hurt me in other areas of my life. So when it comes to the power of saying no, why do we say no? Sometimes no is necessary, but sometimes we say no when it isn't really necessary. A lot of times, we say no to things because we're scared. We're afraid of having to step up to the plate of what would be required of us in a yes scenario. And so we say no to certain things that we should say yes to out of fear. But there are times when saying no is definitely a good thing. Definitely a good thing, because saying no can protect, in scenarios where you need to protect your energy, or where saying no to, the quantity of something can preserve the quality of something else. Or saying no can also help train others how to treat you, basically, because it can build respect for you when it comes to others respecting your boundaries and your time. And because when you say yes to everything, they start, not being concerned with your time or your boundaries, because you're just going to be available at all times. But being available at all times, it comes at a price. It comes at a price of your sanity and your mental bandwidth and your overall quality of your own personal production in your life. And also saying no to garbage deals or to garbage people, for heaven's sakes, it creates a space for the correct opportunities to show up in your life. A lot of people are like, why isn't anything good showing up in my life? Well, because you keep saying yes to all the crap. Stop saying yes to the crap and make space for good things to show up in your life. And I know you know what I'm talking about. Let's say junk food, for instance. You're always saying yes to junk food and then comes time for dinner when whoever's cooking made steak and mashed potatoes, and now you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not hungry. I don't have space for the good stuff because I ate Cheez-Its and had a big fat soda from Swig just an hour ago. You filled yourself up with junk and now you don't have time for the good stuff. And so saying no to the things that are not good for you or don't matter or take needless time will free up space for you to have positive opportunities and space for all of the good things to enter into your life. And so, most successful people they've learned this, and they have learned to say yes and no out of strategy. So when you say yes intentionally and no intentionally, it is going to create a better space in your life to be able to have more success and better relationships. But that's often our biggest problem is when do we say yes and when do we say no? And how do we know the difference? Like, how do we know when to say yes and no? Sometimes it's just a matter of listening to your gut. But if you need some framework, here's a couple of questions that you can ask yourself. What are my goals? What am I trying to accomplish? And does saying yes to this align with my priorities or my goals? And if it doesn't align with your priorities or your goals, then absolutely say no to that. If I'm trying to accomplish, a work deadline and a friend comes to you and says, hey, let's go get lunch or let's go to happy hour. Are you going to say yes to that? On one day, it might be good to say yes, but in that moment, let's see, what are my priorities and my goals for the day? Oh no, I've committed to get XYZ accomplished by the end of the day. And if I go to lunch or happy hour, I'm not going to get that done. So in that moment, it has to be a no. So if you can stop for a moment, ask yourself that question, does this align with my priorities or my goal for the day? And if the answer is not yes, then say no to that. And not necessarily for good, but just in that moment. The next question that you can ask yourself is, would I still be excited about doing this tomorrow? And if you're like, I would definitely not want to do it tomorrow. And if you wouldn't want to do it tomorrow, do you want to do it today? And if it's just something that you're dreading, then maybe the answer is no. But that's a tough one because you can't just always base everything on your feelings. Sometimes you have to say yes. It's your job. It's your kids need something, your family needs something, your household needs something. And it might be something that you dread, but that doesn't mean it doesn't need to be done. So does it have to be done? Absolutely. You must do it whether you dread it or not. But if it's something that's optional and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do this. Somebody please help me. I do not want to do this. Maybe you should consider saying no. If it's something that needs to be done and somebody else can do it, make the assignment, give it to somebody else, give it to an assistant, to another, to an employee, to one of your kids, your spouse. If it has to be done and you're dreading it, maybe it's just one of those things you should assign. If it's not necessary and you're dreading it, oh my gosh, don't do it. Just don't do it. You'll thank yourself later. Another question that you could ask is, what is the cost of me saying yes to this? What is the cost? And is the cost going to be greater than the benefit? I am the queen of saying yes to things. I say yes to everything. And as a real estate agent, it's a tough world to say no, because it can cost you business and you lose one deal and you lose a significant chunk of income. And so you just get accustomed to saying yes to everything. And so, what is this yes going to cost you? Is this going to cost you your sanity? And is the benefit more than the cost? And yeah, there are sometimes saying yes can be costly, but sometimes the benefit will outweigh it. Like for instance, I had some fun plans last weekend and I was very excited about it. Well, in my line of work, sometimes I get phone calls that I don't know when they're going to show up. And sometimes they just show up and you have to say yes to them. It's like, hey, we are flying down there from out of state. We're going to be in town for 4 days. We are buying a house no matter what. We are not familiar with the areas. We'd like to see a bunch of houses in different areas and just so we can make a fully educated decision. Deep down, did I want to let all my plans go for the weekend? No, I absolutely did not. But I had to weigh the costs and the benefits. I'm like, okay, let's see. They're going to buy an $800,000 house. Do the math on that. The commission is going to be XYZ dollars. Is that worth giving up my inconsequential plans for the weekend? Yes, yes, it is. So, yes, in that instance, the cost definitely, or sorry, back it up. In that instance, the benefit definitely outweighed the cost. And so, yes, I'm going to say yes to that. There are times when you have somebody coming in and they are just curious about the market, would like to see some houses. They're not committing to buying a house. Are you going to let that jam up your plans? No, absolutely not. If you're trying to grow your business and save your sanity and save your family life, sometimes you have to say no. And those are probably some of the ones you want to say no to. If you feel like it might turn into something later, you know what? Find a team member or see if they want to do it. And if they want to do it and it turns into something, great. Let them handle it so that you can preserve your sanity, especially if you're a very, very, very busy person like I am in my business. Know when to say yes and know when to say no. Evaluate your clients, know when they're serious, know when they are just wasting your time, and then make your schedule accordingly and give the people that deserve the time, and those who are just kind of kicking tires, maybe rethink saying yes to them or when you say yes to them. The next question you could ask yourself is, am I doing this out of joy and love and, business priority, or am I just saying yes to this out of guilt or obligation or fear? If you are saying yes out of guilt, obligation, and fear, help me now, run far and fast. Because a lot of people say yes out of guilt, obligation, and fear. And nothing will make you give your worst effort than saying yes out of guilt, obligation, and fear. And it never makes you feel good. It just never make you feel good inside. And so if you want to feel good about what you're doing and you also want to give your best effort and do the best that you can at whatever you're doing, by all means, do not say yes if it is rooted in guilt, obligation, or fear. If you feel like your fear, might be irrational or unfounded, maybe just take a break from it for a moment and talk it through with somebody who's got, some sound advice, and see if the fear you're feeling is just fear of, what am I trying to say here? If the fear that you're experiencing is, I don't know, coming from like I don't know, an embarrassment perspective or oh gosh, what am I trying to say here? If the fear is coming from a place of like, this is not good, or a fear of like, I'm terrified of putting myself out there. That's, and actually we're going to save that particular conversation for another day. And so let's go back to the guilt and the obligation, because those two are actually always a bad thing. The fear that's a different category. If it's real fear, then yes, don't do it. But if it's fear stemming from insecurity, that's a whole nother podcast episode in and of itself. And we'll talk about that later. But from guilt and obligation, are you doing it because you feel guilty? Are you doing it because you feel obligated? Those are the things that will burn you out faster than anything. And at the end of the day, the people that you're doing them for often feel that, even if it's on a subconscious level coming from you, and they don't hold the highest level of regard for the action itself. People know, they know when you're coming from a place of love and joy and, wanting to do it from the depths of your soul versus like, oh my gosh, I'm feeling obligated to do this for you. I don't want to be here. Nobody ever wants that truly from you. Especially good people. There are those jerks out there. They'll take whatever they can get from you, no matter, where it's rooted in. But the people who are good in your life, the ones that love you, they want you to come from a place of love and joy. And so, we can talk through some strategies on when to decipher when to say yes, when to say no, and how to do things without coming from a place of guilt or obligation. Another question you can ask yourself is, does the opportunity match my values? Somebody can present an opportunity that is a good opportunity, but if it's not something that aligns with your values, then it's probably not something that you can say yes to. You see documentaries. I'm a huge documentary fan. I watch all kinds of, I don't know, I like to learn. I like to know about real people's real life experiences. And, you see with celebrities where they said yes to something because they felt like an opportunity, but it didn't align with their values and it didn't end up being good for them and their career long term. And so staying true to you and to your values and what you believe in, and only saying yes to things that align with that is going to be not only helpful short term, but truly helpful in the long run, and helps you maintain that level of respect for yourself and what you want to get out of just life in general, the life you're trying to build. You always want to maintain that respect for yourself. And does this align with my values? And the last one is well, actually, it's not even really the last one because I actually said this straight out of the gates is, what is my gut telling me? What is my gut telling me? We need to get to a place where we trust that gut instinct that we have. We believe in what we're doing so much. We have thought about it and we have dug deep and we know exactly what it is that we want to accomplish in our lives and what we want to do. And sometimes we just need to dig deep and what is our gut telling us to do? Because sometimes we are faced with opportunities where it doesn't really matter if we say yes or no. It's kind of inconsequential. And sometimes those are the hardest decisions to make, is when what's the consequence of saying yes? What's the consequence of saying no? And neither one of them necessarily have good or bad ramifications. The questions between good and bad and good and evil or right and wrong, those are easy. Those are easy decisions to make. It's the questions that we have to answer that are not necessarily good or bad in either way. Those are the ones that we really need to just dig deep into our gut and just trust it. What is our intuition telling us? What do we want long term? If there's not immediate consequences to it right now, sometimes you just have to rely on that whole good old fashioned instinct of just trust your gut. And then once you've trusted your gut, just go with it. Go with that answer. Just a little backstory on that. I had a life coach for quite a few years. And one of the things that he would always say to me, it's funny, he called me Bionic Woman. He had a nickname for everybody. And so he would call me that all the time whenever we would talk. And so one of the things, I haven't had my life coach in years, and one of the things that he would say to me on the regular, and I haven't had the life coach in years, but the words that he would say to me ring through my head constantly still to this day. And one of the things that he said to me that resonated the most was, Bionic Woman, your instincts are never wrong. Bionic Woman, trust your gut. It's never wrong. Bionic Woman, trust your intuition. It's never wrong. Bionic Woman, trust your intuition all the time. And there were so many times where I would question it, whether it would be out of fear or, guilt or obligation. But at the end of the day, you have to trust your intuition. You have to. But you have to get to a place with yourself where you can trust yourself. You have to get yourself to a place where you're like, I'm confident with who I am. I'm secure with who I am and where I'm going. And then listen to your gut. Sometimes people don't want to listen to their gut because they don't always do what's best for themselves, tell themselves stories that are not necessarily true. They say what they think other people want to hear. They tell themselves what they think other people want to hear or what they want to hear, even though deep down they know that that's probably not best for them. And so you can only truly trust your intuition if you have truly been honest with yourself and truly gotten to know yourself and know what it is that you want, why you want that, and what the ramifications are of not listening to your gut. And this has been a very tough one. It's been very tough for me because I get these whole gut instinct intuition moments where I'm like, I know I need to do this. And this podcast is frankly one of them. It's probably the biggest one I've ever faced, actually. And my son and I were talking about this before we set up the camera to record this today is, why are me, so, I don't know, committed when there's nothing on the line, when I'm just committing to who I am as a person and what I believe in it. And communicating what I know to be true for myself and for other people. But then you put the camera on and put yourself out there in a vulnerable way, and all of a sudden you start second guessing and questioning everything that you want to say and why you want to say it. So listening to your gut and acting on those instincts, when do I say yes? When do I say no? And are you brave enough? Do you have courage enough to listen to what your gut instinct says and to either commit to running away from it or commit to running toward it? Because they can both be very scary. And how do you tell the differences? So a couple of red flags. So a red flags, if just thinking about it feels exhausting to you, if thinking about it feels exhausting to you, then it's probably a red flag. Maybe you should consider saying no to that. Or if there's a deadline attached to it that just seems unrealistically urgent, that could be a red flag. The next one, oh, this is going to be great exposure. Oh, help me. I was having another conversation this morning, and that's what sparked today's episode. Was I had said yes to an opportunity to it's an online TV show that will give you great exposure. It allows you to be a TV host, if you will. And I'm not criticizing the opportunity because it's great and a lot of people love it and work really well with it. I don't know who I am as a person, needs to be realistic about what do I have the ability to do and how do I have the ability to show up in that moment. And so this will be great exposure. Oh gosh, be careful about that and rethink that before you say yes, if that is the primary source of where you're coming from. Another red flag, if someone else is going to benefit from this way more than you are going to benefit from it, that's also a red flag. Possibility of when you should maybe say no. Or you are filling a gap because someone lacked planning. As a mom, we often fall into these categories where, oh, your kids didn't plan well, and now you're forced to say yes because somebody else didn't plan well. And it messes up your day, messes with your energy, and also is training people to continue to ask you for things when they didn't plan well. And when you say yes to things where other people didn't plan well, then you're enabling them to continue to not plan well because they know that you're going to bail them out. And so, if it's feeling like that, sometimes it's a red flag and you just do need to say no. Some of the green flags where maybe you should say yes is if the opportunity that you're being faced with is making you feel energized and curious and you want to find out more about this. Sometimes that's a green flag to say, yes, I want to do this. Yep, definitely. Sign me up. Definitely got to investigate this more. This is energizing me, breathing new life into me, and definitely want to find out more about that. Or if something comes up and you're like, okay, how is this going to support my bigger vision? And if the answer is like, I can see it supporting it in so many ways, then absolutely say yes to the things that support your bigger vision. Or saying yes to something that could potentially move you into a bigger or better room or sphere that you want to be in. If you may not want to go to a party. I'm not a huge party person. And sometimes I'm like, I don't necessarily want to go to this party. But what if there was a party or an event and you knew that people were going to be there where meeting them could help move you to another place in your business or, just sometimes being seen or showing up in a place can help move your career forward or introduce you to people that can help you move your vision forward. You might want to say yes to that. A party's not going to kill you, especially if it can put you in front of people that could help you build a bigger plan for yourself. And another green flag is, it might seem scary, but what if it stretches you in a direction that you want to go? If it's stretching you into a direction that you want to go, then you are possibly saying yes to the right thing. And that takes us into kind of the other one where we were talking about fear. And we need to make this an entire episode in and of itself of when to say yes to the things that you're scared of and when to stay away from things that are truly terrifying in various ways. But if it stretches you in a good way, even if it's scary, then maybe you should still say yes to it. So those are some of the green flags. So at the end of the day, here's the bottom line. We want to say yes to the things that light us up. We want to say yes to the things that can shape your future. And we want to say yes to the things that are intentionally building the life that we want to create. If it doesn't fall into those categories, maybe we need to reconsider. If we start saying no to things out of just sheer obligation and it doesn't meet those other criteria, or if saying no to the things that are just a distraction. In the world that we live in, everything is a distraction. There are distractions around every corner. Every time we turn around, there's something wanting to distract us. Oftentimes it's, the wrong kind of social media. A lot of times our businesses run on social media and they're required and we have to do it. But when we start paying attention to the wrong kinds of social media, and it's not necessarily bad, it's just not moving us forward. And it's just wasting time and wasting space in our life. We need to say no to the distractions. And then also saying no to opportunities, even if they look like opportunities, but if they come at the cost of your well-being, whether it be your physical well-being or your mental or emotional well-being, saying no to those things can help protect us, protect our time, protect our energy, protect our mental bandwidth, and to allow space to give to the things that do move us forward, that do make us happy, that do allow us to have time for the people and places and things in our world that matter to us the most. And so we need to say yes to the things that light us up, say no to the things that violate our boundaries. And both of those things can be powerful and both are necessary. And it's always going to be a juggle, when do we say yes? When do we say no? And how to know the difference between when they're going to be good for us and when they're going to be bad for us. So that's going to be it for today. If you liked this episode and you want to hear more, don't forget to like and follow and subscribe and all of the things. Maybe leave a comment below if you'd like to engage in further conversation. And we will see you next time on Before the Bloom podcast.